today I'll talk about this concept called statistical quality control or SQC, and how do we do it using Microsoft Excel. Okay. Before we go into the topic, we'll just try to understand why is this topic important. So I'll just put an example over here. So you see these kinds of food products, right? So this Tata Salt or Ashirwad Atta or the Sunfeast pasta noodles. So these products come in packs of different quantities. So you will have a 250 gram pack, 500 gram pack, 1 kg pack, or even if you take Ashirwad Atta, I think there is also a 10 kg pack that's available. So, for example, you take the 500 gram pack. So if you buy any product like this one, and if you buy the 500 gram pack, do you think that the weight of that pack will be exactly 500? By 500, I mean, do you think it will be exactly 500.00 grams?
No, I think there will be some tolerance, like less.
Exactly, yeah. So it might be 499 grams, it might be 501 grams. So there might be anything. So there might be a little bit of a difference or a tolerance, just like Jairam said, okay? But to what extent should you give that tolerance? So it is not possible, practically it's not possible to manufacturing everything exactly as per that 500 gram pack. So you have to give some tolerance, but what is the correct level of tolerance or allowance to give? Or so in other words, the packing process should be in control. Okay, so by in control, I mean it should be between the correct range of tolerance. Okay, so why are we saying this? Because even a difference of a few grams can have a huge impact. So for example, if you pack more, you will have a heavy financial loss. So at a one pack level, 1 or 2 grams might not make a big difference, but when you're manufacturing, let's say 1,000 packs per day, and that will sort of roll up to crores and crores of packets per year. So at that level, at an enterprise or an organization level, that will make a huge financial loss for you. Or on the other hand, if you pack less, then you will have customer complaints. So for example, recently I read an article where this guy had purchased a bottle of honey. Okay, and usually if you see these days, most of these products, they come with a sticker saying extra 20% off, extra 10% off. Honey, shaving cream, toothpaste. So all these packs have this kind of a offer placed on them. So what this guy had done is he had purchased that bottle of honey and he had turned it upside down. Okay, and what had happened was all that honey will flow towards the lid of the bottle, right? And at the top there was this gap. So basically, that 20% extra was not there. So what the manufacturer had done was he had just stuck that sticker on top of the bottle saying 20% extra, but he has believed that the customer will not be able to see beyond the sticker, right? So he has not exactly filled that extra honey. So in this case, you have customer complaints, which is leading to a damage to the brand value. So if the process goes either way, so if you pack more or if you pack less, you have to deal with these problems. Okay. So we come to the step of measuring the process. Okay. So imagine that this is the production line, and you have, let's say, 1,000 units per batch. Okay, so all these products, you see, they are manufactured in batches. So if you take the packet and if you see at the back, then it will have something called as batch number. So just assume that there are 1,000 units per batch. Okay, and out of that, let's say you're taking a sample of 100 units in each batch. That is 10% of each batch. You're taking it as a sample, and for that sample, you will have these two measurements. You will have the mean of that sample and the standard deviation. So in each sample, let's say you have 100 units like this S1, S2, S3 up to S100. For each pack, you will have the weight, and you just put this in Excel. You just take the average of this weight and you have the standard deviation formula in Excel also. So using that formula, you can just measure the mean and standard deviation. Okay, so statistically speaking, this readings that we took here, right, will follow a normal distribution. Okay, so what is this normal distribution? Any activity or any process, most of the processes that you encounter in your day-to-day life will follow this normal distribution. So for example, all these corporate companies, if you see, how do they rate their employees? So it's like a very few employees will be given low rating, a very few employees will be given a very high rating, and the bulk of the employees will be given average rating. And similarly, I think if I think SWAP might be familiar, even in IIMs, the grading system. Yeah. Hello. So they follow the normal distribution, right? SWAP.
Yeah, they call it bell curve.
Bell curve. Yeah. So bell curve is another name for the normal distribution. So you see this thing, right? So the symbol mu corresponds to mean of the distribution. Sigma, so this is plus infinity and minus infinity, and on both sides of the mean you have something called as sigma level. Sigma stands for standard deviation. So one standard deviation from the, so 1 sigma means one standard deviation from the mean. 2 sigma means 2 standard deviations from the mean. So 1 standard deviation or 2 standard deviation or n standard deviations on the positive side of the mean, and also on the same thing on the negative side of the mean. Okay. So what is this number 68.26%? What we say here is, so if any process follows a normal distribution, then 68.26% of the readings will lie between one standard deviation of the mean. So that is minus 1 sigma to plus 1 sigma. Similarly, 95.46% of the readings of the normal distribution will lie between minus 2 sigma and plus 2 sigma. That is within 2 standard deviations of the mean. So similarly, we have something called a 6 sigma, where we say 99.999998% lie within 6 standard deviations of the mean. Okay. So how does this impact your? So in the first slide, I talked about something called as packing process should be in control, right? So what does this in control mean? So let's say you have processes of different control levels. Okay. So this is something which has a very low sigma level. So for example, let's say this is 1 sigma, okay, and this is something which has a high sigma level, for example 6 sigma, okay, or you can just say 2 sigma, 3 sigma, 4 sigma, 5 sigma and 6 sigma. Okay, so if you take the 2 sigma level, this process has a high amount of deviation and low amount of control. So by high amount of deviation, if you see this, the readings are spread all over the place. So you have something called as LSL and USL. I will come to these in a moment. But just imagine that this is the distribution of your readings. So you measure the weight of the salt packets or whatever, and those readings are all over the place basically in this 2 sigma process. But if you see this 6 sigma process, all of them are within this very small range from here to here. So most of the readings, so that is to say your 99.9999% of the readings are between these 2 lines. Okay, so here we say it has very low deviation, which means you have very high amount of control over the process. So this is how your process quality varies based on the deviation and the control. Any questions until now?
No, not from my side.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So it is, so this concept of quality control, as you know, it's not limited to the food industry alone. So I've listed some other examples here. So let's say there are 2 types of sigma level. So one is a 3.8 sigma level and one is a 6 sigma level. Okay, so what does this actually imply in the business context? So for example, if you take something like a postal service, we're talking about at a 3.8 sigma level, we are saying 20,000 lost articles of mail in 1 hour. But if you improve that process, improve the quality of that process to go to a 6 sigma level, then it means 7 lost articles of mail per hour. Similarly here, if you see, this is unsafe, 3.8 sigma means unsafe drinking water for 15 minutes every day. Okay, but at 6 sigma level, this corresponds to 1 minute of unsafe drinking water for every 7 months. Okay, similarly 3.8 sigma level, in a healthcare scenario, you can see 5,000 incorrect surgeries per week. Okay, which is, it's a very bad thing basically. But if you improve the quality of your surgeries, and if you go to the 6 sigma level, you perform only 1.7 or almost 2 incorrect surgeries per week. Okay. So similarly in aviation, in the while prescribing medicines or power cuts. So this concept of quality control and 6 sigma is applicable for different fields. And when you're talking about 6 sigma, there is so India has a very classic example. Does anyone know I'm talking about, what example I'm talking about here. No, this is actually a very famous example. So in Mumbai, if you see, there's something called this Dabba Wala system. Okay, so what these Dabba Walas do is they, so imagine, so your family is in your house, right? You go to your office, and basically your family will pack your lunch for you in a tiffin box or a dabba, and that dabba will be delivered to you at your office by these Dabba Walas. Okay, now Mumbai is the second most populous city in the world, and you have literally like lakhs and lakhs of people working there, and so many lunch boxes to be delivered, and most of the lunch boxes, they will be similar in shape, size, and everything, right? So how do you ensure that you deliver the right lunch box to the right person? So they follow this unique color coding combination. So they place stickers on top of each lunch box, and they have fine-tuned their process to such an extent that they are even beyond the Six Sigma level. Okay, so that's the level of quality that they deliver. And the interesting thing here is that they are not professionally qualified MBAs. They're not from IIT or IIM, so their education level is very limited, but still they have perfected this system so much, and it's very popular that so when Prince Charles of Great Britain visited India, he specifically said, I want to meet the Mumbai's Dabba Walas. And I think even researchers from Harvard have visited here and taken their example and studied their best practices that they follow. So these are examples of how this Six Sigma process or this quality improvement process can be applied across different industries. Okay. So there are some formulas here. So maybe before I go into the formula, I'll just show you this Excel file. So I'll just come back to that same example, right? So assuming that you're manufacturing the salt or the atta or whatever, and let's say you're manufacturing 500 gram packets. Okay. So you have something called as LSL or USL. Okay, so these are what we call as specification limits. So that is, LSL is lower specification limit, USL is upper specification limit. So these will be typically set by your customer or your company management. So basically what they say is, see, I know that you cannot manufacture exactly 500 grams. So even if it is 499 grams or if it is 501 grams, I'm still okay with it. Okay. So my lower specification limit is 499 grams, upper specification limit is 501 grams. Okay, and then you set your packing machine accordingly so that it produces between 499 and 501 grams. Okay, and then you manufacture thousands and thousands of packets, and then you take one batch of 1,000 packets and you measure you take a sample out of those 1,000, you take a sample of 100, and for those 100 packets you measure the mean weight. Okay, so that comes to, let's say, 500.7. Okay, and then for those 100 readings, again you measure the standard deviation, so that comes to, let's say, 0.3. Okay, so here you have something called as non-conformance and yield. So what is this non-conformance? It is basically those percentage of the packages which fall outside of these specification limits. Okay, so how many packets weigh below 499 grams, or how many packets weigh above 501 grams. Okay, so that is why we have two measures here. So one is NCL and the other is NCU. NCL stands for non-conformance lower, NCU stands for non-conformance upper. Okay, so how do we calculate this? So if you see this cell, we have this formula in Excel called as norm dist. So norm dist stands for normal distribution, and this is how that formula looks like. So I just type norm dist here. Okay, I think the latest version has norm.dist. So it says returns the normal distribution for the specified mean and standard deviation. Okay, you just use this norm.dist function. You have three parameters. So first one is x, second one is mean, third one is standard deviation, fourth one is cumulative. Okay, I'll just, maybe for easier purpose, I'll just write it here: x, mean, standard deviation, cumulative. So these are the parameters of that normal distribution function. Okay, now you just see this cell. I have specified these four parameters. Okay, so first one is what we have written here, x. So that is D2. D2 is basically this 499. Second parameter is mean, or the average of the sample. So that is D5, which is this 500.7. So you took the 100 readings, you took the average of those 100 readings. So that is what you have here, 500.7. Third parameter is standard deviation, that is 0.3. Okay. And then what is this cumulative? So cumulative here you see I have specified as 1. Okay. So what we are trying to find out using this formula here is, so if I have a normal distribution having a mean of 500.7 and a standard deviation of 0.3, what is the probability that a value is less than or equal to 499? Okay, so the operating word here is less than or equal to. Okay, so that is, so when you're talking about less than or equal to, you're talking about a continuous distribution as opposed to a discrete distribution. So for a continuous distribution, this cumulative will be 1. Okay, so I'll repeat. If your process is following a normal distribution with a mean of this 500.7 and a standard deviation of 0.3, then what is the probability that the weight will be less than or equal to 499 grams or less than this lower specification limit? So that is what we define as the non-conformance lower. Okay. So similarly for non-conformance upper, what we do is, you see the formula here, 1 minus normal distribution. So basically here we are saying what is the percentage of products which have a weight more than or greater than this 501. Okay, so what we do here is we use the same normal distribution formula, this part, right? This part that you see here will give you what is the percentage which is less than or equal to this 501, and 1 minus that percentage will give you what is the percentage greater than 501. So basically this NCL will give you what is the percentage of defects which is less than the lower specification limit. NCU, since we use this 1 minus formula here, will give you percentage of products which is greater than the upper specification limits. Any confusion here, or do you want me to go over this again?
Sai, just one thing. So if we are doing 1 minus, then the total of this NCL and NCO should be 100, but it's 0 and 15%.
So this is just non-conformance, right? So this is just a probability of what percentage lie beyond USL and what percentage lie below LSL. So the remaining will be between LSL and USL. So that won't be here. So that will be under the conformance bucket. Here we are just listing the non-conformance.
Sai, one quick question. I understood NCL and NCU, but I couldn't get why the cumulative factor is equal to 1.
Okay, so when you're talking about a probability distribution, you have something called as a discrete distribution and a continuous distribution. Okay, so the difference between these two is, for a discrete distribution, you measure the point probability. Okay, so what is the probability that a value is exactly equal to 499, or what is the probability that value is exactly equal to 501? Okay, so that is the discrete distribution. For a continuous distribution, when we say less than or equal to, we say what is the probability that a value is less than or equal to 499, and what is the probability that a value is less than or equal to 501, and 1 minus
Hello?
the probability of being less than or equal to. Hello?
Sai, we lost.
There was
Okay. See, so in probability you have two types of distributions, right? One is discrete distribution. Let's write it here. Discrete distribution.
So only for the last 10 seconds, Sai. So
Okay.
we got the discrete and continuous. So basically, for point probability distributions, like we'll call it discrete, and
Yeah.
if we are talking about a range, then we'll call it continuous, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically here what we mean is, for discrete distribution we estimate the probability of a value that is exactly equal to some quantity. Okay. For continuous distribution, what is we measure the probability of a value being less than or equal to a particular quantity. So here, why do we use the continuous distribution? Because we have to get the entire range of probability for the value being less than this lower specification limit or greater than this upper specification
Correct.
limit.
Yes.
Got it. So
Yeah.
this is what we call as a point probability. This is something like a range probability. And here, if you see, this is just the percentage of non-conformance. So this, this kind of answers Swapnil's question. So I'm saying at the low, so below the lower specification limit, almost 0% are non-conforming, but above the upper specification limit, 15 or almost 16% is non-conforming. So what happened to the remaining 85%? So they are within the conformance range. So they are between this LSL and USL.
Okay.
So that's what I have here. So this NC total, which means non-conformance total, is nothing but the sum of these two quantities. And yield is nothing but 1 minus this non-conformance, 1 minus this. So the total of these two, that is conformance, yield is conformance and NC is non-conformance. Total of conformance and non-conformance will be equal to 100. Okay.
So what is the formula for NCU?
NCU. So NCU is basically 1 minus this norm dist. See, what will this norm dist function will give you? So this will basically tell you, if I have a normal distribution with a mean of 500.7 and a standard deviation of 0.3, what is the probability that the value is less than or equal to 501? Okay. But we don't want less than or equal to 501. Since 501 is upper specification limit, we want the probability that the value is greater than 501. So 1 minus less than or equal to 501 will give that greater than 501. So that's why we use this 1 minus. Okay. Yeah. So you have this lower specification and upper specification limits, which are set by the customer or the management of the company. You have measurements which you have taken from the sample. So that is basically the mean and the standard deviation. So using these 4 basic parameters, you calculate this non-conformance percentage and the yield percentage of that product or the process. Okay. And then here you have something called as defects. Okay. So defects, we measure it in 2 terms. So one is defects per million units and let's say defects per billion units. Okay. So million, I mean in 10 lakh units, how many products you produce will be defective. And by billion, I mean in 100 crore units, how many products will be defective. Okay. So how we have calculated this? This is just, so in 15, if your average process non-conformance is 15%, then parts per million, you just multiply it into 10 power 6. So this into 10 power 6 will give you the defect rate in a million units. Similarly for billion, you just multiply it, this 10 power 6 into 10 power 3 or into 10 power 9 will give you the billion parts per million. Okay. And you also have something called as process capability. So you have several parameters here, CPU, CPL, CP, CPK, and using all these parameters, you have calculated something called as the sigma level of the process, which is nothing but 3 into this CPK. Okay, so these formula I have listed here. I can just take a look, but basically all these formula use the same parameters. So for example, CP, you see USL minus LSL by 6 into standard deviation. Then you have the CPU and CPL. So USL minus mean, this is mean minus LSL. So using these two, you take the minimum of these two, which is nothing but the CPK. And then the CPK, you multiply by 3, you get this sigma level. So this is how this particular value comes. And this is nothing but the same thing which we saw on the slide. So, so you have this 2 sigma, 3 sigma, whatever, right? So how do you calculate the sigma level of that process? So you use these formulas and you get to this sigma level. So right now your process is having a mean of 500.7 grams and standard deviation of 0.3 grams. You are at a 1 sigma level. So this is the level of quality of current level of quality of the process. So now what if we want to go to this gold standard of quality? So the 6 sigma is the gold standard of quality. So if you want to go to this gold standard of quality, I basically need to go, so I'm here at this point right now. Okay, I need to go to this point. So what do? I need to control the variation or the deviation in the process. Okay, so right now all my readings are spread out too much. Okay, which means the standard deviation is very high. Okay, but if I want to go to the Six Sigma level, I have to reduce my standard deviation, or in other words, I have to reduce the variation in my process. So what I do here, so something similar to what we saw last week. So I just go to this data tab here. I go to this what if analysis, click on this goal seek, okay, and set cell. So sigma level is my target cell, okay, and my target value is, let's say I want to go to 6 sigma, so I'll just put 6. Okay, and how do I go from 1 sigma to 6 sigma? By reducing the variation, or reducing the standard deviation of the process. So by changing the cell, standard deviation cell, so this 0.3 has to change. So let's click on OK. So now if you see, the initial standard deviation was 0.1 or something. Now we have a 6 sigma level, which means for the same process, we need to reduce the standard deviation to 0.049997. Okay, but this is like 6 sigma level, it's a very perfect level, which is kind of impossible, almost impossible to achieve, and even if you do achieve it, it's very, very difficult to maintain. Okay, because it requires an extremely high level of monitoring, which is not practical. Okay, so practically, according to the theory of this quality control, what the experts say is that even if you do manage to achieve a 6 sigma level, over time the quality level of your process will drop from 6 sigma to 4.5 sigma. Okay, so basically if you talk about a 6 sigma level, you're talking about 1 defect per billion units. So for example, if you manufacture 100 crore salt packet, only one of those packets should have a high weight or a low weight. Okay, so this is almost impossible to achieve. Okay, and so that's why what the experts say is that even if you set your process up to a 6 sigma level, over time it will fall to a level of 4.5 sigma. So over time it will just naturally come to the 6 sigma will reduce to 4.5 sigma. So what will happen then? So again, let me just go to this what if analysis and goal seek. So now I will set this cell 6. Instead of 6 sigma, I will just say 4.5 sigma. Same, we have to reduce the standard deviation. Let's click on OK. So now if you see 3.4 defects per million units. Okay, so that is, if you're manufacturing 10 lakh salt packets, 3.4 salt packets will weigh up something different than the 500 grams. So they might be more or less than the 500 grams, only 3.4. Similarly, if you manufacture 100 crore salt packets, around 3,398 of them will be having the high weight or the lower weight. Okay, so actually I have just put as defects per million units in so that it will be easier for us to understand. Actually, this is measured in terms of opportunities for a defect. Okay, so for example, in this particular salt example, we are just taking that one step of packing the salt into the cover, but there are several other products. For example, you take something like a bottle cap, for example. Okay, so that process will have many steps. So for example, you take the stock of the plastic or the metal stock, and then you bore a hole according to the diameter of the bottle, and in the so that will be the first step. Second step of the process will be making the threads inside the inner surface of that bottle cap. So there will be 2 steps in that process, and you can make a defect or a mistake in either step 1 or step 2. So each step is an opportunity. Okay, so this defects is actually measured in terms of defects per million opportunities. So for each bottle cap, if you have 2 opportunities, then if you're manufacturing 10 bottle caps, then you will have 20 opportunities. So that is exactly how this defect is measured. Just for the purpose of simplicity, I've just put it as units. Okay. So how did we get to the 6 sigma or 4.5 sigma level? By reducing the standard deviation of the process. So initially our standard deviation was 0.1 and we reduced it to 0.06. So by reducing the standard deviation from 0.1 to 0.06, we went from 1 sigma to 4.5 sigma. Okay, but if you see, how do we actually implement this kind of a solution? So standard deviation, if you see, it's not a direct measure, right? So you take a set of readings and then you measure the standard deviation, and only then you get to know what is the quality level of your process. But practically, if you see, we need something which is more easier. So that is why we have these two parameters. So we have something called as control limits. So LCL stands for lower control limit, UCL stands for upper control limit. So these are the levers under our control. So when I say levers, what I mean is, so you have to set your or configure your machine in such a way that the minimum diameter, minimum weight that is being packed is not less than 499.8 grams, and the upper limit that is being packed is not greater than 500.2 grams. So as and when you are manufacturing, if you ensure that the weight does not go below this value, and if you ensure that the weight does not go above this particular value, then you're operating within the 4.5 sigma level. So again, so for here you have a couple of formulas. So for LCL, target mean minus 3 into standard deviation. By target mean, I mean the 500 grams. So that is the target, right? So each packet should weigh 500 grams. And for achieving a 4.5 sigma level, you need to have a standard deviation of 0.06. So this is basically 500 minus 3 into 0.06. That is the lower control limit. Upper control limit will be 500 plus 3 into 0.06. So that will be the so you configure your machine to operate within these two limits. Or if you're in the case of the bottle cap or a manual operation scenario, you ensure that the operator doesn't make the mistake of machining something or manufacturing something outside of these two limits. So we use these two limits to bring the process under the control. So initially, though the customer has said that you can go from 499 to 501, if you want to have a 99.99% high quality at a 4.5 sigma level, these are the two limits within which you need to operate. Any questions here until now? Or do you want me to go over any concept again?
I mean, in the set, this set limit controls, you're going with 3 sigma, right? That's why you're multiplying with 3 into D6. But you want 4.5.
No, so this is basically just a formula that this is a general formula that they have to calculate the lower control limit and upper control limit. This doesn't change.
Okay.
Sai, a quick question. If you see the set of formulas that we have on the bottom right, we have few formulas to get to the sigma level, and if we see, we used the earlier LSL and USL values to get to a sigma value of 1 before, right? And from so after that we changed basically our LSL and LCL and UCL values. Okay. So okay, got it. So these are two sets of values. So we need to change from LSL to LCL and USL to got it.
So this is just a specification by the customer, but if we want to achieve a very high level of quality, then we have to ensure that this is the limits within which we operate.
Got it. Okay. So the LCL becomes our new LSL. Is that correct?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just add one more slide on this. Just click over it. Okay. So some other points related to this Six Sigma or the quality control concept. So this concept, if you see, was pioneered by Motorola initially. And also it was taken up in a huge manner by General Electric. So these two companies, you can say, are the titans of this Six Sigma or the quality control. And it's actually a very huge subject, and it has a lot of concepts, statistical concepts, control charts. You have something called the DMake cycle. So I've just scratched the surface here in today's session. And there are several levels of expertise that people achieve in this Six Sigma field. So you have something called Six Sigma green belt, then you have black belt, then after that you have master black belt, and then finally you have Six Sigma champion. So depending on the level of expertise, people achieve these different levels. Okay? And so I myself, say I am a Six Sigma green belt. Okay, and if you are looking at it in terms of career development, then a lot of people do the Six Sigma certification, and the thing with Six Sigma is that it's not enough if you just do a certification. You also have to do a project once you do the certification. So for example, if you take me, I did my Six Sigma Green Belt certification from KPMG, after which I also did a project. So by project, I mean it's a field project that you have to work on. So in my case, I went to a factory. I took something called as a precision time and motion study. So my project was related to reducing non-value added time in a process. So I took. So here, since in this example, I think we talked about taking measurements of the weight, right? So I took measurements of time in my project. So if any of you is considering a certification, then please keep in mind that you need to get a certification and also do a corresponding project, so that you actually get to apply the theory knowledge that you have learned in the field. And so green belt, I think that's the level to start with. Some institutes give a certification called as yellow belt, but take my advice, I think it's a waste of time, because yellow belt, though some people give it, it's not recognized, and it's practically useless. And when it comes to Six Sigma, it also matters from where you get the certificate. So I was certified by KPMG, which is it's a very reputed organization. And you also have something called as the American Society of Quality, ASQ. So these two are the top organizations to get a certificate from, and you can just keep that in mind if you ever consider this in your career. So yeah, that's all I had for today.